Today, our speaker is Miss Jaime Meissner. I have had the privilege of working with Jaime here at Whitestone for almost 2 years, and she is not only a wonderful coworker, but a great friend of mine as well. And I am just so excited to hear what she has to share with us from what she learned on her sabbatical this fall from God, hearing from God. Before she gets started, I'm going to just cover her in prayer, if you would join me. Dear Jesus, we are so thankful for this time to pause and reflect and slow down. As women, and especially as moms, our lives are always moving at the speed of light. And it takes a lot for these women to make the time to be here and to be present with you and to fellowship with one another. I ask that you would bless Jaime this morning, that you would allow her to speak through your words, and that we would gain wonderful knowledge to apply to our everyday lives. In your precious name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ashley. I just have to plug in my computer here. You should see a picture of my family pop up. It's pretty grainy. I apologize when you blow it up so big. My son, my photographer, my second son is a big photographer, and he's going to be, Mom, how could you do that? But it is what it is. So most of you know me, but some of you may not. This is my family. I've been married to my husband, Daryl, for next month it'll be 24 years. We have our oldest son, Noah, who's in the mustard-colored sweater holding our dog, Sophie. Sophie's 11, so she's not a puppy. He is a junior at Bethel College in Minnesota. He is studying ministry to be a pastor. We are going to get a special treat because he's actually working with Jake, and he's going to intern here this summer. So you'll get to know him, or at least maybe hear from him. My second son, which everyone thinks is the oldest, is Jackson. He's in the Striped. A lot of you might recognize him. He does the camera stuff in the back with Eric, and he also drums at church. My third son is Max in the blue. We call him our forgotten child because nobody ever remembers that we actually have him. He is really easygoing. I know it's sad, but it's true, and he laughs along with it. He likes to blend right in with the crowd. He doesn't want to stick out. He doesn't like me talking about him, but he is the biggest sweetheart. He's a freshman, and then after 3 boys, we were blessed with Grace, who is 11 in 6th grade, and she is more work than her 3 brothers combined. So that said, that is my family. I'm going to leave them up here just for a second while I start. And I'm going to kind of be talking and running my slideshow. And this is out of my comfort zone, but as you'll see in my story, God kind of told me I should do this, so I'm doing it. So to start out with a little thing for you to think about. There are 24 hours in a day. About 12 to 15 hours that we have in the day, we are awake and not sleeping. If you minus the 8 or 9-ish hours that we're at school or work, that only leaves about 4 to 6 hours a day that we have free to do whatever we want with our time. We find ourselves turning down this and that, claiming that we don't have the time. Yet, the average American spends 5 hours and 24 minutes on their mobile device each day. On average, Americans check their phones at least 96 times a day, or once every 10 minutes. Now, if you're like me, that's a punch in the gut. And I'm not telling you any of this today to make you feel bad. I mean, I'm right there with you. The staff at Whitestone was blessed in 2022 with a sabbatical. Most of you know that I am on staff here. I've been on staff here for 14 years. I'm now the children's ministry director. And I was blessed with a week alone with the Lord last year. So like I just said, I've been married for almost 24 years, and I don't think I've ever been truly alone for more than 18 hours. I dragged my feet, not one, and I know my small group knows, and a lot of you know, I dragged my feet. I didn't want to take the time off from my commitments, from my kids, from my husband, and I actually waited until like November to take my sabbatical when Luke is like, okay, Jamie, you're running out of time. The week leading up to my departure, and I only went 2 hours up north outside of Wisconsin Rapids to a little tiny town called Big Flats, where my parents have a second home. And Satan was really attacking me full force. Worries were creeping in. Not 1 ounce of me wanted to go. But guess what? It ended up being one of the most amazing weeks of my entire life. During my sabbatical, God was so very present. He revealed things to me that I needed to hear. I ran, most of you know that I'm an avid runner. I ran a 13-mile section of the Ice Age Trail in Coloma. If you don't know what the Ice Age Trail is, it's a 1,200-mile trail that goes across the state of Wisconsin. I ran the Meccan section that day, and it just happened to be the halfway point on the 1,200-mile journey, which I thought was really cool. I had no idea. And this is a little side note because Luke always gives me a hard time. For those of you that don't think you can hear from God while running, you can. I tried walking, and it didn't last very long, and I could hear the same amount as when I was running. I truly realized this week that the reason that I run is truly because of my time spent with God. It's the time that I can connect, listen, and appreciate his goodness. And it was during this 13-mile run that God dropped me to my knees. And it was at that very moment that I knew that I had to change. So I want to ask you, what do you think is the greatest enemy of spiritual life today? Does anybody have any ideas? Media? I've been pretty quiet about what I'm talking about because I wanted you to try to guess. Busyness, yep. Anybody else? Grace? Time, yep. So it all kind of goes to it. According to Dallas Willard, there's another picture. I put a few in here. Sorry about that. Okay, according to Dallas Willard, who is a philosopher, he has passed away, at the University of Southern California, hurry is the greatest enemy of our spiritual life. And I'm going to talk to you today about hurry. It just so happened, like I said, my son is going to school for ministry, that he had given me a book to read on my sabbatical. And I didn't really pay attention to it. I am so busy with everything. I threw it in my bag to take, and off I went. So what God dropped me to my knees is exactly what this entire book was all about. And I did not know that because I didn't read the book until after God dropped me to my knees. So I read this book at my parents' house sobbing because this was exactly what I needed to hear. So I'm going to be talking to you today about this book. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. God truly put this in my life at the right time. And this morning I am going to share with you. Think of the Bible. Satan doesn't show up as a demon with a pitchfork. Today, you are far more likely to run into the enemy in the form of an alert on your phone while you were reading the Bible, a multi-day Netflix binge, or a full-on addiction to social media. A Saturday morning at the office, yet another soccer game on a Sunday morning, or commitment after commitment in a life of hurry. Corrie ten Boom once said, if the devil can't make you sin, he'll make you busy. There is truth in that. Both sin and busyness have the exact same effect. They cut off your connection with God, other people, and even yourself. Carl Jung, a famous psychologist, had a saying, hurry is not of the devil, hurry is the devil. Wow. Some of you right now might be feeling convicted, and that's not the goal of my talk today. Some of you may be thinking, wow, well, that's just life in the 21st century. Think back to the last time you bumped into someone and asked how they were. I bet you their answer was good, but busy. You'll find this answer everywhere, across every gender, ethnicity, and stage of life. College kids are busy. And boy, are they. Having almost two college kids myself, I see how many directions they are pulled. Young parents are busy. Empty nesters are busy. CEOs are busy. And so are coffee shop workers and part-time workers. We are all busy. Granted, there is a healthy type of busyness where your life seems to be full of things that matter and not wasted on trivial pursuits. By that definition, Jesus himself was busy. The problem is not when you have a lot to do, it's when you do too much that the only way to keep up is hurry. Think about what God's greatest commandment is. Anybody want to tell me what God's greatest commandment is? To love. You are correct. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength, which is followed by love your neighbor as yourself. As moms, we know that love is time-consuming. All my worst moments as a mom, wife, daughter, and friend are when I'm in a hurry. Late for an appointment, behind on my to-do list, trying to cram too much into my already busy schedule. And guess who pays the price for that? My kids, my husband. 1 Corinthians 13:4 says, love is patient, love is kind. Well, that's definitely not how I'm acting when I'm in a hurry, because hurry and love are incompatible. Ronald Rolheiser, a Catholic writer, states, we, for every kind of reason, good or bad, are distracting ourselves into spiritual oblivion. It's not that we have anything against God, depth, and spirit. We would like these. It is just that we are habitually too preoccupied to have any of these show up on our radar screens. We are more busy than bad, more distracted than non-spiritual, and more interested in the movie theater, the sports stadium, the shopping mall, and the fantasy life they produce in us than we are in church. Pathological busyness, distraction, and restlessness are major blocks today within our spiritual life. Now, there is a time and a place for hurry, a 911 emergency, or when a toddler runs into the street, but let's face it, those moments are few and far between. The pathological busyness that most of us live with as our default setting, the chronic hurry that we assume is normal, is destroying us, and not just physically, but spiritually as well. We know that our world is moving in a frenzied pace. Does anybody have any idea when the start of the digital age was? Shout out a year if you have an idea. Well, according to what I found, it was about 2007. It was about the start of the internet. The internet alone had changed the world in us, and not just for the better. Depending on who you talk to, it's decreasing our IQs and at least our ability to pay attention. A recent study found the average iPhone user touches his or her phone, get ready for this, 2,617 times a day. Each user is on his or her phone for over 2.5 hours over 76 sessions per day, and that's all smartphone users. Another study was done on millennials, but the number was twice that. And most people have no idea how much time they actually lose to their phones. A similar study found that just being in the same room as your phone, even if they are turned off, will reduce somebody's working memory and problem-solving ability. And that's just phones. Posting on social media, checking email, looking up the weather forecast, those stats didn't even touch on the internet use, much less the dark hole of Netflix and other streaming services. So much time is lost, and this is time that we can never get back. And the problem is that it's an addiction. We must admit I'm not saying everybody has an addiction, but it is an addiction, and we must admit that we have a digital addiction, and our willpower doesn't stand a chance against that like button. When it comes to Americans and their relationships with their phones, the majority fall under the category of compulsion. Most of us are past that and onto full-on addiction. Tony Schwartz states, addiction is the relentless pull to a substance or an activity that becomes so compulsive it ultimately interferes with everyday life. By that definition, nearly everyone I know is addicted in some measure to the internet. If you think you're an exception to the rule, do yourself a little test and try to prove it. Turn off your phone for 24 hours straight. See how long you can go before giving in to the itch to pick up your phone. I completely took myself off social media during my sabbatical. It was so hard at first, but then it was one of the most freeing things I ever did. And the worst thing that I did was get back on. Seriously. I no longer had to worry about anybody else's life. I was filled up with my own. And I didn't have to fill my mind with useless information about other people. Not that I don't love other people, but psychologists and mental health professionals are now talking about an epidemic of the modern world. Hurry sickness. They label it a disease, and here's one definition: a behavior pattern characterized by continual rushing and anxiousness, and a malaise in which a person feels chronically short of time and so tends to perform every task faster to get flustered when encountered of any kind of delay. Reading that was like hitting me upside the head. At home, I catch myself all the time being impatient with my family because they aren't doing things at a fast enough pace for me. Now, you're going to think I'm the worst wife ever, but Daryl is pretty anal. We're pretty opposite. And he will meticulously cut up the dog's food. We buy the fresh pet roll. So he's cutting it up because she inhales it without chewing. So I will grab it off the plate out of his hand. I will hack it up, throw it down so she'll stop barking. And why? Why am I doing that? I'm in such a hurry to get her to be quiet, and I take it out of my husband's hand. Daryl, and it really does sound like I'm picking on him, but he will, and you guys are going to throw eggs at me because, yes, if there's laundry in the dryer, he will, he knows when it goes off, and he gets it, and he will start folding it. But if he's folding towels or washcloths, he is so particular, it makes my skin crawl. So as he takes 25 minutes to fold something I could do in 5 minutes, I find myself tearing that out of his hand and doing it myself because I can't stand to watch him. So there's a little bit of this hurry sickness and where I'm coming from. And needless to say, I can self-diagnose myself with this. Here are some other symptoms. Moving from one checkout line to the other because one looks shorter or faster. Counting the cars in front of you and either getting in the lane that has the least or is going the fastest. Multitasking to the point of forgetting one of the tasks. Does anybody feel this with me? I know that I'm not alone, and I think it's safe to say that the majority of us can relate. Comer had a little self-inventory from his book, and we're going to run through these, and I want to see if these ring true to you. To really self-diagnose, don't think about how you would treat a coworker or a friend or a neighbor. Think of how you would treat those closest to you, like a spouse, a roommate, your kids. First one is irritability. You get mad, frustrated, or just annoyed way too easily. Little normal things irk you. People have to tiptoe around you on your ongoing low-grade negativity, if not anger. Hypersensitivity. A minor comment hurts your feelings. A grumpy email sets you off. Or a little turn of events throws you into an emotional funk that can ruin your day. Minor things quickly escalate into major events, and you can't seem to roll with the punches. Restlessness. When you actually do try to slow down and rest and relax, you can't. Your quiet time with God, you can't focus your mind. You go to bed early and you toss and turn with anxiety. You watch TV, but you are on your phone, folding laundry, checking social media. Workaholism, nonstop activity. You just don't know when to stop. Or worse, you can't stop. Another hour, another day, another week. Your drugs of choice are accomplishment and accumulation. These could show up as careerism or as obsessive house cleaning and errand running. Emotional numbness. You don't have the capacity to feel another's pain, or your own pain for that matter. Empathy is a rare feeling for you. You just don't have the time for it. Out of order priorities. You feel disconnected from your identity or calling. You always get sucked into the urgent, not the important. You're busier than ever before, yet you still feel like you don't have time for what really matters to you. It may be months or years, and you realize that you still haven't gotten around to all the things you said that were most important in your life. Lack of care for your body. You don't have time for the basics. 8 hours of sleep a night, daily exercise, healthy home-cooked food. You gain weight and you get sick multiple times a year. You regularly wake up tired, don't sleep well, and live off caffeine, sugar, processed carbs, and alcohol. Escapist behaviors. We are too tired to do what's actually life-giving for our souls, so we turn to our distraction of choice: overeating, overdrinking, binge-watching Netflix, browsing social media, surfing the web. You find yourself stuck in a loop of socially acceptable addictions. Slippage of spiritual disciplines. When you get busy, what's the first thing that goes? Things that are truly life-giving. Quiet time with God, scripture, prayer, Sabbath, and the list goes on. And the last one is isolation. You feel disconnected from God, others, and yourself. When you do actually stop to pray, you're so stressed and distracted that your mind can't settle down long enough to enjoy the Father's company. All right. I don't know if anybody added up their score or how you did, but it doesn't matter. You are not alone. Reject any guilt or shame you are feeling right now. It is not helpful, and it is rarely from God, and definitely not the purpose of this exercise. The point is, an overbusy, hurried life of speed is the new normal in the Western world, and it's toxic. As I mentioned before, hurry is a threat not only to our emotional health, but our spiritual health as well. Hurry kills relationships. Love takes time. Hurry doesn't have it. It kills joy, gratitude, and appreciation. It kills wisdom. Wisdom was born in quiet. And hurry kills all that we hold dear: spirituality, health, marriage, family, thoughtful work, creativity, generosity. The list goes on. John Ortberg framed it: hurry is not just a disordered schedule, it's a disordered heart. So now, ladies, that we discovered the problem, I'm gonna help you find the solution. And the solution is not more time. It's to slow down and simplify our lives around what really matters. We have to accept our limitations. We can't do it all. We all have limitations, and lots of them. Our bodies, we can only be in one place at one time. Our minds, nobody is an encyclopedia. We all miss things. Our gifts, you will not have the same gifts as others. Accept your gifts and accept others, and do not compare. Comparison just eats away at our job. Our personalities and emotional wiring, everyone is different. Our families of origin, none of us start with a blank slate. Some start with a leg up in life. Others walk with a limp from their early years. An absent mother or father, nominal or non-existent faith in your parents, generational poverty. All families set limits on our lives even before we were born. Oops, sorry about that. Our education and careers. If you dropped out of school, that's a limitation. If you have a PhD from Harvard, that's a limitation. Your career can limit you because it's low paying or hard on your body's energy resources, or because you are so successful and work such insane hours just to stay on top of it all. Seasons of life. and the responsibilities that go with it. Going to college, raising young kids, caring for elderly parents. In some seasons, we just have very little extra time to give away. Life is a series of choices, and we need to learn to say no. If you are a people pleaser like me, it's especially hard. How we spend our time is how we spend our lives. Can you guess how much the average American spends on social media each year? 705 hours. The average American spends on TV a year? 2,737.7 hours a year. What else can we give thousands of hours a year to? In the 20 minutes of Candy Crush on your time before you leave for work, we could pray for every single one of our family members and friends. In an hour of TV before bed, we could read through the entire Bible in 6 months. In a day running errands or shopping for stuff we really don't need, we could practice the Sabbath. The entire 7th day of our lives devoted to rest, worship, and the celebration of our journey through God's beautiful world. Every day is a chance, and every hour is an opportunity. Every moment is a gift. How will you spend yours? Will you waste them on trivial things or invest them in a life focused on eternal life? The answer is easy. Follow Jesus. You may have been wondering what any of this has to do with following Jesus. Jesus was a rabbi. Rabbi is Hebrew meaning teacher. Like every rabbi in his day, Jesus had 2 things. First, he had a yoke. Not a literal yoke. A yoke was a common idiom in the 1st century for a rabbi's way of reading the Bible. But it was also more. It was his set of teachings on how to be human, his way to shoulder the weight of life. Marriage, divorce, prayer, money, government, conflict resolution, etc. It's not a common image we use these days, but imagine 2 oxen yoked together to pull a cart or plow in a field. A yoke is how you shoulder the load. What made Jesus unique wasn't that he had a yoke, because all rabbis had a yoke. It was that he had an easy yoke. Secondly, Jesus had apprentices. The Hebrew word is talmidim. It's usually translated as disciples. To be one of Jesus' disciples is to apprentice under Jesus. To put it simply, have 3 basic goals: to be with Jesus, to become like Jesus, and to do what he would do if he were us. The whole point of apprenticeship is to model all our life after Jesus. And this is what Jesus was all about: healing people and saving them at a soul-deep level. How? Through the cost of apprenticeship with him. Everywhere Jesus went, he was constantly offering an invitation that usually sounded like this: come, follow me. Come, be my apprentice. Matthew 11, chapter 28 through 30. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. We're going to read it even slower, and don't rush this. God has something for you at this moment. I'm going to ask you to read this with me. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. Gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for my souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Now I'm going to read it slowly to you from the Message translation. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Ladies, this is an invitation for all the tired, burned out, stressed, overwhelmed by to-do lists, praying just to make it through the day. Jesus' schedule was full, to the brim at times, in a good way, yet he never came off hurried. He lived freely and lightly, free of all discontent and distractions that come from too much money and stuff that we don't need. By following him, it means we live our lives the way Jesus lived. You take his life and his teachings as a model and template. If your life doesn't have some kind of structure to facilitate health and growth, it will wither away. Following Jesus has to make it onto your schedule and into your practices, or it will never happen. Apprenticeship to Jesus will remain a desire and not a reality in your life. Here is the thing. Most of us are just too busy to follow Jesus. With what? Honestly, a huge list of excuses. I get it. God dropped me to my knees on the Ice Age Trail, realizing all of my excuses. The truth is that we all have plenty of time. We just have to reallocate our time. First, seek the kingdom of God, not the kingdom of entertainment. The hard truth is following Jesus is something you do. Practice as much as faith. In the book, John Comer walked through 4 spiritual practices for unhurrying your life. We're going to take a quick look at those. The first one is silence and solitude. Think back to when you were a kid. Do you remember saying, "I'm bored"? I remember driving my mom crazy with that. Now, I can't even tell you the last time one of my 4 kids has told me they're bored. Now, when we feel a little boredom coming on, we reach for our phones. We check our email, news feed, search for a new pair of shoes, check the weather, or play Candy Crush. This is robbing our ability to be present to God, present to other people. How many of us are guilty of only listening to our kids with one ear while our phone gets the other? Present to all that is beautiful in our world, God's beautiful creation. I realize that's why I was out in Neshota Park at 5 a.m. this morning. My trail running and my running is so much more than the physical act of running. That is my non-distracted time with my Lord and my Savior. And I can simply just be present. At the very end of Matthew 3, Jesus was baptized. When he came up out of the water, there was literally a voice from heaven saying, "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased." In Matthew chapter 4, verse 1, the very next line, we read, "Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. After fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. The tempter came to him." The first thing Jesus did after being baptized was head straight into the desert. Now, we may wonder why Jesus would head out into the wilderness alone after fasting for 40 days. And wasn't he hungry? Get this. The wilderness isn't a place of weakness. It's a place of strength. Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness because it was there and only there that Jesus was at the height of his spiritual powers. After a month and a half of fasting in the quiet place, he had the capacity to take on the devil himself and walk away unharmed. That is why you see Jesus come back to the place of solitude. Mark 1, verse 35 says, "Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed." You think Jesus could have slept in? Had breakfast with his apprentices? But no, he was up early and out the door to a quiet place. Jesus came back from the wilderness with all sorts of clarity about his calling. He was grounded, centered, in touch with himself. And from this place, he knew precisely what to say yes to, just as importantly as what to say no to. And ladies, the same thing goes for us. During my way with God, I experienced clarity like I had never done before. It was such a beautiful thing. I can't even describe it. I encourage you all to take some time away. Schedule it on the calendar to be alone with God. We schedule vacations at the drop of a hat. We need to be able to schedule silence and solitude as well. Without solitude, it is virtually impossible to live a spiritual life. When we don't put spiritual discipline into practice, we reap the following consequences. We feel distant from God and end up living off somebody else's spirituality. Whether it's a podcast, a book, a one-page devotional we read right before we head out the door. We feel distant from ourselves. We lose sight of our identity and calling. We get sucked into the urgent and not the important. We feel the undercurrent of anxiety that very rarely, if ever, goes away. The sense of always being behind, having to catch up, and never done. We get exhausted. We lag through our days, depending on coffee and other stimulants to get through the day, longing for bedtime. We turn to our escapes of choice. We run out of energy to pray and turn toward a cheap fix, a glass of wine, a new show to stream, and social media. We become easy prey for Satan, just furthering our sense of distance from God and our souls. And then emotional unhealth sets in. We start living for the surface of our lives, not the core. We lose our tempers, bark at our kids, sulk, feel angry or sad, and often both. On the flip side, here's the alternative. We find our quiet places, a park down the street, our deck at daybreak, a morning routine before the kids are awake. We take our time. Maybe it's not a full hour, but long enough to decompress. Sometimes we need a few minutes. Sometimes an hour isn't long enough, but we're grateful for any time we can get. We slow down, breathe, come back to the present. We start to feel not just joy and gratitude and restfulness, but also sadness, doubt, anger, and anxiety. We face the good and the bad, the ugly in our own hearts. Our worry, our depression, our home, our desire for God, all the lies we believe and the truth we come home to, our addictions, our coping mechanisms, all of this is exposed, painfully so. But rather than taking it on those we love most, it's exposed in the same place of the Father's love and voice. In our ears, we sense his voice, cut through all the other voices, and it's in that silence we hear God speak his love over us, and we get his perspective on life. The next spiritual discipline is the Sabbath, and this one also hit me over the head like a ton of bricks. Kind of has to do with Luke's talking about this series where I kind of grew up. Sabbath was the Sabbath, and then was the Sabbath. So the word actually comes from the Hebrew word Shabbat, and that word literally means to stop. The Sabbath is simply a day to stop working, stop wanting, stop worrying, and just stop. You get to take a whole day during the week to slow down and breathe. But the Sabbath is much more than just a day. It's a way of being in the world. It's a spirit of restfulness that comes from abiding, from living in the Father's loving presence all week long. Mark 2, verse 27, the Sabbath was made for man and not man for the Sabbath. These words of the Savior remind us that the Sabbath day was meant to be a blessing rather than a burden to those who observe it. The Sabbath is not a new idea. It's just new to us. A.J. Swoboda wrote, the Sabbath has largely been forgotten by the church. It is not as though we do not love God. We love deeply. We just don't know how to sit with God anymore, he continued. We have become perhaps and most emotionally exhausted, psychologically overworked, spiritually malnourished people in history. We need to hear that the Sabbath was made for man. It was created and designed by God himself, and it is a gift for us. A gift to enjoy from the Creator to creation and to gratefully receive. This is a practice that goes back to Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But after 6 days of hard work getting the universe up and running, we read the following. By the seventh day, God finished the work he'd been doing, so on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. Did you catch that? He rested. Yeah, I'm not really into the Sabbath. I'm an extrovert and I like to stay busy. God rested. Yeah, I get that, but I work a demanding job that I love and I just can't make the time. God rested. Yeah, my kids are involved in sports and we always have games or traveling on Sundays. God rested. Yeah, I have little kids at home and it's just not really doable right now. God rested. Do I need to say it again? God rested. And in doing so, he built a rhythm into creation. God worked for 6 days and rested for one. Fight it and we fight God. Dan Alexander in his book Sabbath had this to say: the Sabbath is an invitation to enter delight. The Sabbath, when experienced as God intended, is the best day of our lives. Without question or thought, it is the best day of the week. It is the day that we anticipate on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and the day we remember on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Sabbath is the holy time where we feast, play, dance, sing, pray, laugh, tell stories, paint, walk. A list can go on and on and on and on. Few people are willing to enter the Sabbath and sanctify it, to make it holy, because a full day of delight and joy is just more than most people can bear in a lifetime, let alone a week. All of this is rooted in God. He rested. He stopped. He set an entire day just to delight in the world. But notice what else God did? He blessed the seventh day and made it holy. And there are two noteworthy things here. First, the Sabbath is blessed. In the Genesis story, three things are blessed by God. To start with, God blessed the animal kingdom with an invocation, be fruitful and multiply. Then he blessed humanity in the same way, be fruitful and multiply. And then God blessed the Sabbath. So God blessed animals, humans, and then a day. It means that the Sabbath, just like any animal or human being, has the life-giving capacity to procreate, to fill the world up with more life. There are a number of Sabbath commands in the Bible. Here are just a few top ones. Exodus 20, verse 8, remember the Sabbath by keeping it holy. I love that word, remember. It's easy to forget that it's a blessed and holy day. Easy to get sucked up in the speed of life. Remember that life comes as a gift. Then God said, 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. Notice the line, a Sabbath to the Lord. That can also be translated as set apart for the Lord or dedicated to the Lord. So the Sabbath isn't just a day of rest, it's also a day of worship. By worship, it's not necessarily singing, but a whole life orientation to God. The Sabbath isn't the same as a day off. I don't know about what you do on a day off, but for me, I clean, cook errands, run errands, pay bills, run to the store. You may see a movie or meet somebody for coffee, play a game of pickleball with friends. That's all great stuff, but those activities don't make it a Sabbath. On the Sabbath, all we do is rest and worship. Notice how nice and easy this command is. Rest and worship are broad categories. Plenty of room for interpretation based on your personality or your stage of life. You do you. But the important thing is to set aside a day for nothing but rest and worship. And I can tell you that one of my New Year's resolutions was just that. And things do come up. You know, sometimes somebody does have to work. But my family, phones are gone for this day. On Sundays, I will not shop. I will not go to the store anymore. And it's been 3 months, and it has been life-changing. The next spiritual discipline Comer discusses to eliminate hurry is simplicity. Luke 12:15 says, watch out, be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. And, I had that on there and I didn't change it. And then Luke 12:33, sell your possessions and give to the poor. I'm fairly certain that most of us might dislike these verses. What about saving for the future? Retirement? I'm married to a banker. Matthew 6:25-33, do not worry about your life. What will you eat or drink, or about your body? What will you wear? Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? First, seek the kingdom. Okay, wait a minute. Isn't that what most of us worry about? Money to pay bills? Mark 4:19, the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth and the desires for other things come in and choke the word, making it unfruitful. Wait a minute, does that mean wealth is deceitful? Matthew 19:24. Again, I tell you, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God. Wealth makes it harder to experience life from God's reign. Not easier. That doesn't make sense. The more money I have, the better my life seems. Are you confused? If these sayings of Jesus sound crazy to you, you're not alone. They do to most of us living in this part of the world. You could be putting your beliefs in another gospel, another version of what a good life is. Let's call it the gospel of America. That gospel makes the exact opposite claim. The more you have, the happier you'll be. Get that new dress or the new pair of shoes, the latest and greatest electronic device, or a membership to that elite gym. You'll be happier. Trade in your car or truck for the newest model with the latest and greatest features. Get a bigger and better home. Make sure to furnish it with the latest design trend. Work your way up the career ladder, throwing an elbow to get that promotion, raise, or bonus. And when you do, you'll be happier. Everyone knows that happiness is out there. It's just one PayPal click, one outfit, one car payment, or mortgage away. We now get our meaning in life from what we consume. We would never admit it, but most of us can relate to, I am what I buy, or I am what I wear, or I am my brand of cell phone, or the car I drive, or the neighborhood I live in. For a lot of people, these aren't just things, they're identities. Shopping is the number one leisure activity in America, overtaking the place previously held by religion. Alan Fadling says, the drive to possess is an engine for hurry. Everything you buy costs you not only money, but also time. And less time means more hurry. This brings me to believe that Jesus knew what he was talking about. We forget that Jesus was the most intelligent teacher to ever live. His teachings just aren't some arbitrary moral sense. They're good. It's a good and true way to live. So many of Jesus' teachings, especially in money, were just telling stories about the way the world actually is. Acts 20, verse 35, it is more blessed to give than receive. Notice that it's not a command. It's an observation of the human condition. Matthew 6:24, again, you cannot serve both God and money. And again, this is not a command. He didn't say you shouldn't. He said you can't. Luke 12:15, life does not consist of an abundance of possessions. Yet again, he didn't command, he just made a statement about the way life actually works. See what he was doing? He was teaching what is true. Whether we believe him or not is another matter. Either way, his ideas about money and stuff correspond to reality. Simplicity goes by a few other names: simple living, frugality, minimalism. What exactly is it? First, I'm going to tell you what it's not. It's not a style of architecture or design. And secondly, it's not poverty. It isn't a bare home, an empty closet, or a joyless life with no freedom to enjoy material things. The whole goal is the exact opposite: more freedom. Minimalism isn't living with nothing. It's about living with less. It's also not about organizing your stuff, cleaning out the garage every spring, cleaning your closets for the 9th time, making a Target run to buy 20 plastic bins and a label gun. Then what is minimalism or simplicity or whatever word you prefer to use? Here are a few helpful definitions. This is from Joshua Becker, a former pastor who now writes about minimalism full-time. He defines it as the intentional promotion of the things we most value and the removal of everything that distracts us from them. And another definition from Richard Foster and Mark Scandrette: simplicity is an inward reality that can be seen in an outward lifestyle of choosing to leverage time, money, and talents and possessions toward what matters most. Notice that minimalism isn't just about money and stuff. It's about your whole life. And to keep the definitions coming, here are a few one-liners for clutter. Anything that does not add value to my life. Anything that does not spark joy. Too much stuff in a too small space. Anything we no longer love or use. Anything that led to the feeling of disorganization. The goal here is to live with a high degree of intentionality around what matters most. And for those of us who apprentice under Jesus is Jesus himself and his kingdom. Listen to Paul's command to the rich in Ephesus. 1 Timothy 6:17 through 19. Command those who are rich in this present world not to be ignorant nor put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. In this way, they will lay up treasure for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so they may take hold of the life that is truly life. Paul is saying the same thing Jesus did in Matthew 6. Simplicity is the way we reach out and grasp life that is truly life. That leads us on how to put this into practice. Here are a few principles, and they are principles, not rules. This is more about freedom and less about rules. 1, before you buy something, consider the cost. Ask yourself, what is the true cost of this item? For instance, buying a motorcycle. Think about what it will cost to clean, repair, maintain, insure, finance. The motorcycle is just more than that initial purchase price. Can you afford it? How much time will it cost you to own this? And how often will you use it? Will it add value to my life and help me to enjoy God and his world even more? Or will it just distract me from what really matters? Never impulse buy. It's amazing. My husband is a banker, and he had somebody in his office who had a lot of money and was deciding what to do with it. And he told Daryl, he's like, you know why I have money now at my age? And Daryl's just like, yeah, why? And he goes, because I never bought what I wanted. I always sat and thought about it, and it was needs over wants. Kind of is so true, but to have, a 90-year-old man tell you that, who's lived that. So it's amazing how much money we buy at the spur of the moment just because we see a new pair of shoes. What about that? Something you saw online and you just had to have. Even though we might already have 10 pairs of shoes and we might not have anything to go with that pair of shoes, we will still buy it. Have you noticed, though, when you do exercise self-control and you don't buy something right away, that desire quickly passes? As a general rule, when you see something, let it just sit. Save it for later in your Amazon cart. The longer the item sits, the larger the item is, the more it should sit. Pray about it. Give your rational mind's time to catch up with your irrational flesh, and just pray about it. Before you know it, that purchase will probably be forgotten about. But if a purchase doesn't have a blessing on it, do you even really want it in your life? When you do buy, opt for fewer, better things. Often in an attempt to save money, we'll buy a lot of cheaply made things instead of saving up for something that's quality and will last you a long time. If Jesus was right and our money is actually God's money and we're just his money managers, then this is a good route to go. Still, before you go out and buy some high-quality thing, ask yourself, do you really need it? Share. Our mom swap comes into play here. It has its downsides, but this is great for simple living. Apps like Lyft and Uber make it easy to get around town without a car. Vacation rental sites are great for when you're traveling. And if you need to power wash your house or your deck, ask your neighbor, ask your friend down the street. So try to share. Get into the habit of giving things away. It is more blessed to give than to receive. It feels good to put on a new shirt for sure, but it's incredibly life-giving to help a friend in a tough stretch. Want a more blessed life? Give generously and regularly. Less shopping means more money to share, which in turn means a more blessed life. Live by a budget. Seems kind of crazy to put this on this list, but I'm shocked at how many people don't live by a budget. A budget is far more than a way to stay out of debt. A budget is your money to what a schedule is to your time. It's a way to make sure your treasure is going to the right place and not getting wasted. There's lots of great resources out there for doing a budget, and I encourage you to share it with a close friend. You can speak into each other's spending habits, helping to hold you accountable. Learn to enjoy things without owning them. Our culture thinks we need to own something to enjoy it. We don't. I deeply enjoy trail running in the state forest. Do I own the forest? No. What about the books I check out from the library? I enjoy them, but I don't own them. Cultivate a deep appreciation for creation. You're going to get sick of me saying it, but creation really has the potential to wake us up in a few ways that anything else can. It invokes gratitude and wonder. Many of you wonder how I can be up at 5 a.m. running in the woods, and it fills my soul like nothing else. I think I have a little quote in here. Nature literally has the power to heal. By slowing down and letting yourself notice the smell, sound, and feel of nature, you become present, aware, and often experience less stress. You become unbusy. Cultivate a deep appreciation for simple pleasures. The older I get, the more I enjoy the simple things in life. A cup of coffee on my deck in the morning, a home-cooked meal with my family, a walk around Fowler Lake, or a run around the Bell on a sunny day. These all cost me very little, but yet they pay me huge dividends of happiness. Ecclesiastes 2:24 says, a person can do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in their own toil. It is the little things. And then recognize advertising for what it is. A good place to start is your closet. The odds are you guys all have a closet. Even my dirt poor college kid has a closet. And most of us have way too many clothes. Maybe you want to narrow it down to an outfit a day for a week. Noah, my junior in college, and I have a picture of him. Cleaned his closet down to all but a few shirts. He is like this on fire, and he literally gave himself like 4 shirts and 4 pairs of pants. But it's this denim shirt that he's wearing. It's one that he He found this at a thrift store. It's got USA and Olympic on it. I can't stand the thing. And you know what? Every single time it's clean, he's wearing it because he only has 4 shirts by his choice. I'm super proud of him. But, he has just been, and God has really used him too. So he has gained so much freedom in having fewer material things, and he has been such an inspiration to me to keep going on this path of simplicity. I'm a frugal saver. I think I might need it again someday. I don't want to rebuy something, but I'm slowly learning out of sight, out of mind, and it is so freeing to get rid of that stuff. To be fair, simplicity is not the answer to hurry in our modern world, but it is an answer, even an easy one. Just get rid of stuff you don't need. It's an answer that will cost you, though. As Dallas Willard points out, the cost of discipleship is high, but the cost of non-discipleship is even higher. Yes, it will cost you to follow Jesus and live his way of simplicity, but it will cost you far more not to. In Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthened me. People use this verse out of context for all sorts of things, but do you know what Paul was writing about in this context? Contentment. We're going to look at the verses right before it. I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. Paul wasn't writing about overcoming some Goliath in our lives. He was writing about discontentment, the nagging feeling of always wanting more, not just more stuff, but more life. You can be happy right here and right now through Christ who strengthens me. Meaning, through investing your resources in an ongoing, interactive relationship with Jesus. You can live a rich and satisfying life whether you are rich or poor, single or married, working or dream job, or working for a minimum wage. Right now, you have everything you need to live a happy and content life. You have access to the Father, to His loving attention. I know I'm very long. I'm almost done. The last, and that's why I'm trying to talk a little faster. I apologize. This is a lot of good information. The last spiritual discipline that Comer talked about was slowing. And John Ortberg defined it as cultivating patience by deliberately choosing to place ourselves in positions where we simply have to wait. The basic idea behind slowing is this: slow down your body, slow down your life. Our apprenticeship to Jesus have to be whole person endeavors, mind and body. If we can slow down both the pace at which we think and the pace at which we move our bodies through the world, maybe we can slow down our souls at a pace at which they can taste and see the Lord is good. And that His life and that life in His world is good too. Here are a few ideas for slowing, and then I'll be finished. All right, some of these are going to be challenging. Drive the speed limit. If a sign indicates the speed limit is 25, drive 25, not 30, not 33, pushing to see how far you can get away with. Get in the slow lane and rock it with Grandma in the Buick. Settle in. Feel the wheel in the road. My Jackson, my 18-year-old, had a Buick, and he loved it because he'd just get in there and go slow. And when the people would see the look on his face, seeing a 16-year-old drive it, it was pretty funny. Use it as a chance to practice God's presence. And as most of you probably do, driving is a great time to pray. Come to a full and complete stop. Next time you try this, notice how hard it is. These seem silly, but I have really tried to put these into practice, and it really does slow you down. It's good. Don't text and drive. This should not need to be mentioned at all. After all, it's illegal. But hurry is literally killing us because you gotta get to people. Show up 10 minutes early for an appointment without your phone. Could you sit in a waiting room these days without your phone? Challenge yourself. Choose the longest line at the checkout. I have done this for the last 3 months. You know what? It's amazing the kind of people that you can talk to. And I know Rachel's talked about running into people in the grocery store that comment on her twins or, kids. And it's just taking that little extra 2 minutes and you really bless somebody's day. Turn your smartphone into a dumb phone. Take email off your phone. Take all social media off your phone. I turned off all alerts. I had social media. I have it scrolled like 5 pages back. So when I want to get to it, I have to scroll. Really set time to check your email. The author of the book, John Comer, checks it once a week. Monday mornings, his email, that's it. He's a pastor of a big church in Seattle, in the Seattle area, once a week. Delete all notifications. This is a big one. If you can do that, delete notifications. Do you need to be bothered all the time with these little buzzes? That really is a game changer. Delete every single app you don't need or that doesn't make your life seriously easier. Consolidate apps into a few simple boxes so your home screen is free and clear. This one Noah's done. And I just asked him again when he was home last week. He said, set your phone to grayscale mode. It does something neurologically to decrease the dopamine addiction. And you can Google it. But his phone is in grayscale. Makes him not want to even pick it up. I know what you're thinking, and this brings me to the next one. Just get a flip phone or ditch the phone altogether. Parent your phone. Put it to bed before you and make it sleep in. Almost every American wakes up and the first thing they do is look at your phone. Do not glance at it. Do not have email on your phone. I said that set times for email. Oh, I'm not keeping up with my, keep your phone off until after your morning time. Don't check it right when you wake up. I'm at 11. We did that. Set time for social media. There's apps for that. Some I think iPhone even can do that. Ditch your TV. Even more than social media, TV consumes the majority of our free time. Single task. Multitasking is a myth. Women can multitask more than men, but we take on a whole lot. Only God is omnipresent. We inhabit a body that really can only do one thing at one time. Multitasking is switching back and forth between multiple tasks so we can do them poorly instead of doing one well. Be fully present in the moment. To God, other people, to the work in the world, and to our own soul. Walk slower. One of the best ways to slow down your overall pace in life is just to literally slow down your body. Force yourself to move through the world at a relaxed pace. And take a regular day alone for silence and solitude. I can help connect you young moms with preteen teenagers that do childcare, but it's so important to take that time and schedule it. Put it on the calendar. If Satan attacks you like he did me with my sabbatical, don't let him win. Take that time for yourself. It is so, so, so important. Take up journaling. I started journaling when I was on my sabbatical, and I didn't journal up until then. The slow act of writing your life is grounding. If you don't like to write, you can keep a voice journal. The point is to slow down long enough to observe your life from the outside. Experience mindfulness. Mindfulness is just silence and solitude for a secular society. It's like prayer minus the best part. On days when I can't focus and my mind is running wild, I'll take a few minutes and just focus on my breathing. Then I start to imagine the Holy Spirit breathing out the agitation for the day. I turn my breathing into a prayer. Breathe in love, breathe out anger. Breathe in joy, breathe out sadness and pain. Breathe in peace, breathe out anxiety. Breathe in patience and breathe out the hurry in your life. If you can take a long vacation, do it. It's really hard for many of us to get away for more than a week, but it's so refreshing for the soul. There's a little bit of health and fitness coming in here in the last one. Cook your own food and eat in. Fast food is fast. Real food takes time. Make your table an anchor point in your family's life. We eat at the dinner every single night. Granted, there are times when Jackson's working and Noah is at college, but for the most part, we are all at the table, sharing our highs and lows and prayers. And these are the moments that make our family a family, and some of the best ones happen around the table. I have a quote for you. Destroy the idea that you have to be constantly working or grinding in order to be successful. Embrace the concept that rest, recovery, and reflection are essential parts of the progress toward a successful and ultimately happy life. Ladies, these are just ideas. They might not be for you, and that's okay. Come up with your own list and do it. There's more to life than an increase in speed. Life is right under our noses, waiting to be enjoyed. It is my prayer that you are able to take away bits and pieces of what I shared this morning to help you eliminate hurry in your life. Life goes by fast. Let's slow down and enjoy it to the fullest with God at the reins. God bless you all. Thank you.